As you may have noticed before, my Karate Monkey bike legitimately has a flat tire, and so this is a real case. I actually don't know what is wrong with this tire, but what I am gonna do is fix this in the most certain way that I know how, and that is by replacing a tube. This is actually a tubeless setup on this bike, but I have a feeling that that inside that tubeless setup something has gone wrong that's not allowing it to seal anymore because it's been sitting in a garage getting hot and cold for a year, and things are probably getting dried out inside. Anyway, we are going to take this wheel off and we are going to show you how to fix a flat by replacing the tube. Okay, so usually after a while of a tire being on a bike, it gets kind of stuck onto the rim. So what I'll start by doing is just kind of pressing. I'll kind of press on this to move what's called the bead off from the rim. And I see how it's moving away. Actually, it's moving away pretty easily. All right. This tire is going to be easy to pull off. I'm going to show you how to use the rim or the tire levers anyway, just so we know what to do. So there's two sides of this lever. One is a sort of a hooked end like this. This will allow you to go under the bead and pry up and over. Now, what's this other side for? This other side that has kind of a little notch. This is where you can use it to hold against underneath one of the spokes to hold this one in place. And that's why you sometimes want to have two of these. So I can pull this over and hook this underneath while I'm going to take a second one, and some tires are so tightly on that sometimes you need three of these, but usually in a mountain bike, two will do the job. So I'm gonna kind of pry under here, and I can just kind of inch along and pull and get this tire to get unhooked from there. Now I can continue on. All right, I'm gonna kind of continue on in this direction, and I can pry over a little bit. You see how that kind of loosened up over there? At this point, I might have enough open where I can just use my hand at this point. Depending on how much hand strength that you have, these levers will come in really handy if, especially for, you know, some of our younger riders who, or you have a very fussy tire. I have needed to use them, and I've changed a lot of tires, and I've seen a lot of stubborn tires. So this, as you can see, this is like an organism in here. This is completely dried out. This is junk. This is what your latex tire sealant turns into if you leave it in there too long. It's like a rubber ball, basically. That's kind of gross. So yeah, you might want to pull as much of that out as you can. And you know, of course, if you're on the trail, you don't want to leave that laying around the ground. Have some stewardship of the land. Carry out what you carry in, even if it's inside of your tire. So now if I want to replace this, now I don't know what is wrong with this particular tire. As far as if it actually has a flat or if it's just dried out from being old and crusty and just needs a refresher of tire sealant. But I'm going to assume there's some type of flat in here. Now, I don't know where that flat is exactly. So, something caused it. Let's say I'm riding along the wood and all of a sudden, psh, something causes a flat tire. Now, it could be a couple of things. It could be something called a pinch flat, which is when you run into something, you slam into something kind of sharp, and the tire actually, if you have a tubed tire, the tire will actually press down so far that it actually will sink all the way down and hit the rim. Well, if your tube is in there, it's going to bite into your tube and give you 2 holes in your tube. They call that a snake bite, because when you take your tube out and you look at it, it looks like a rattlesnake took a bite into your wheel, because it has 2 bite marks in it. So a snake bite usually is when your tire is underinflated when you're riding, and then you bang into a root or something as you're riding along, and that's something you want to try to avoid by having a high enough tire pressure. So maybe you get that, or maybe you just get a single hole and you don't know. Maybe you hit a thorn or some other sharp object and it's punctured your tire. If sometimes that thorn or something can be stuck in your tire and you want to find that object. So using a gloved hand, I usually like to well, first of all, I'll inspect it visually. Sometimes you can just see it. There's a thorn in there, and you just get that out of there, because guess what? You put a new tube in there, and it's just going to get flat instantly again. So you want to get the offending object out of there. If you don't see it, I usually take a hand and run it around in through here. And the other thing that you would do, and this is a key, a good key, is I would take my tube and I would use my pump, and let's say this is the flat tube. I don't have any bad tubes laying around, but let's say this tube has a flat. I would take my pump, I would pump this up a little bit, and when there's a flat, you'll know when the tube is out of the tire. It's pretty plain to see where the hole is. And if you are a smart person, you took your tube out and you remember where it was, how you took it out of the tire. So the way I always tell where I might start to look for something that might be stuck in my tire, this is an important part of changing a tire, is making sure you don't get another flat, because if you get another flat, then you're really in trouble. You really want to stop that from happening. Ask me how I know this. Answer, because it's happened. Sometimes you get 2 or 3 flats, sometimes on the same ride, and that can be really frustrating. So I can line this up, right? So I see where the valve stem should be. And if I notice that I feel air, or I can hear air coming out from somewhere over here, I know that I need to look somewhere in this area for some kind of, see if there's anything sticking into this tire. I'll look from the outside, I'll pinch and squeeze. I just want to make sure that nothing is still in this tire. Guess what? This tire looks good, but here's an issue. If you are running tubeless and you want to replace your, you just want to do the quick job and not worry about dealing with anything, any of the sealant or anything like that, you'll have to remove this valve stem that is stuck in there. So this bike has the valve stem, which is part of the tubeless system. Some of you might have this. And you have to unscrew this thing. This fastens it to the rim so that it doesn't budge. And then you will need to work it out of there by pushing it up. You might need to remove some of the sealant that's stuck in here, like I'm doing. Pushing this through might be easier said than done. Put that down in a separate spot. So what do you think I should do? I need something firmer to press this out with other than my finger because it's not doing the trick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close off this valve. I'm going to take maybe one of these tire levers will do the trick. Maybe I can use this to press and give some force to push that valve stem out of there. There it goes. Yeah, see, that's all I needed. Just a little, something a little firmer. My next move would have maybe been using multi-tool. Find a rock in the wood. Not saying hit it with a rock. Take this. Take the little collar. Screw that on a little bit. Put this in a safe place in your backpack. Now you are ready. Now you are ready to replace the tire. I already have this a little bit inflated, and that's a good thing because it gives it some shape, and that actually makes it easier to install. So how did I do this? If I had my pump, I used my pump to apply some air to this. So I open up the valve stem. Open this up. I have this set for my Presta setting. Some of you have maybe you have the Schrader valve type, which is the fat valve, which looks like the same kind that's on a car or most other things. Most of these pumps have a reversible kind of piece in here that you can change. So make sure you understand your pump. Make sure before you go out on a ride and get a flat that you can actually use your pump and that it is set up for your style of valve stem. There's a lot of little things to think about before you go out for a ride to know that you have the right equipment and the right experience. Press this on till it won't go anymore. Use this little lever to lock it into place and give it a few pumps to give that tube some amount of air, just a small amount to give it some shape. Press down, pull off, straight off, and close off that valve so the air stays in the thing. Start by putting the valve stem into the valve stem hole in your rim and begin to work the tire or the tube into the wheel. I like to start at the valve stem to get this tire back on and work in the opposite direction, pressing all the way around, making sure that this stays nice and straight. You want that to be nice and straight. If it's going off at an angle, go back and work it back until it's straight, because you don't want any funny angles in there while you are riding, because that could lead to another flat. Now, the trickiest part is the very end of the process, where it starts to get tighter, right? So we're getting this almost on. So I usually kind of go around, starting from the bottom again, give this thing some squeezes to try to work the tire up to the point where I am. And now it takes some strength, okay? Now we're gonna get this tire back on to this rim.